Dear students, I welcome you all. Today I am going to talk about morphological, anatomical and physiological adaptations of plants to light. As you all know, light is an important ecological factor which influences many aspects of plants. There are 4 aspects of light which affect the development and biology of plants. These aspects of light include light quality, light quantity, light duration and light direction. Plants need light as a primary source of energy for carrying out photosynthesis. Thus, the importance of light is fundamental to the survival of plants. Plants have developed various adaptations to survive in different light regimes. Let us first talk about the morphological leaf adaptations to different light environments. The first morphological adaptation is leaf size. The plants which grow under open sun are called as heliophytes. They have small sized leaves as compared to plants which grow under shade. The shade plants allocate more resources to leaves and develop large sized leaves as an adaptation to enhance the surface area for receiving and absorbing incident radiations which reach the leaf surface in such low intensity environments. The plants growing in high light intensity have small leaves as they receive full sun or good flux of light, and this small size helps them to offer less area to warming radiations and thus minimize water loss. The second adaptation is leaf mass per unit leaf area. The leaf mass per unit leaf area is high in sun adapted plants and the leaf mass per unit area is low in shade plants. The leaves of sun growing plants are much thicker than the shade growing plants. The higher thickness in sun plant leaves is because of more cell or palisade layers, while as shade leaves are thinner, having single layered palisade tissue. One more leaf adaptation to light is leaf thickness. The plants which grow in shade have thin leaves as compared to plants which grow under open sunny conditions. The leaves of plants growing under full sunlight are thicker because of increased thickness of palisade layers or more number of palisade layers inside the leaf, thus increasing the photosynthetic tissue per unit area of the leaf surface. Besides, the increased thickness of mesophyll tissue in high light intensity environments leads to the shadowing of chloroplasts by one another in the leaf, thus causing the photosynthesis to become saturated at high light intensities than shady plants. One more adaptation is the stomatal size and stomatal dynasty. The plants growing under high light irradiance or sunny conditions have smaller sized stomata in the leaves as compared to the plants which are growing under shade. The sunny plants have leaves with a high stomatal density than in xerophytes, which have a small number of stomata per unit surface. The high stomatal density in heliophytes can be attributed to high rate of gaseous exchange and photosynthesis, which is low in case of xerophytes. One more adaptation shown by plants to light is leaf orientation. In environments where the photon flux density is high, the plants have developed adaptations such as leaf movements to cope with the excessive radiations, especially at midday. In such plants, the leaves orient themselves vertically so that the incident radiations are parallel to the leaf, resulting in minimum absorption of radiations. In shady environments, the leaves are oriented horizontally to the incoming radiations, thus resulting in maximum absorption or capture of solar energy. Leaf color is one more adaptation shown by plants to different light regimes. A common feature of plants growing under low light intensity is the dark green color of their foliage. This is due to their increased content of chlorophyll B, resulting in a low chlorophyll A to B ratio. The chloroplasts of shade adapted plants show a higher content of chlorophyll than those of the sunny plants. Dear students, now let us talk about one more adaptation of plants to different light regimes, that is leaf area index. Leaf area index is the ratio of a plant's total leaf area to the horizontal area occupied by its canopy. Putting it otherwise, leaf area index means the average number of leaf layers over each point occupied by a canopy. Optimal leaf area index depends upon the intensity of light and photosynthetic light response of individual leaves. So, plants which grow in very high light intensity have more leaf layers where light is able to penetrate, thus displaying a very high leaf area index as compared to plants which grow in shady environments where low irradiance is not able to penetrate beyond 1 or 2 layers. Such plants thus have a low surface area index as an adaptation to low light intensity. One more important morphological adaptation shown by plants to the different light regimes or irradiance levels is phyllotaxis. Phyllotaxis, as you are aware of, is the arrangement of leaves on the axis or on the twigs. In plants adapted to environments where light intensity or irradiance is high, the leaves are arranged in spiral phyllotaxis, while as in plants adapted to low light intensity or shady conditions, the leaves show distichous phyllotaxis. In spiral phyllotaxy, there is self-shading which lowers transpiration rates, while as in distichous phyllotaxy, self-shading or leaf overlapping is minimized, thus keeping the surface exposed to light radiations in otherwise less irradiance environments. One more beautiful adaptation shown by plants to light is leaf hairs. Pubescence is shown by plants growing under open sun or high light intensity. The hairs on such leaves reflect light and also minimize water loss from the leaf surface. Plants under low light intensity are characterized by glabrous leaves or smooth leaves which are adapted to absorb as much light as is available or becomes incident on the leaf surface in such environments where light is very much limiting. One more important adaptation of plants to different light levels is capture of limiting resource. These cyophytes or plants which are adapted to low light levels or low light intensity or shady conditions allocate more resources to leaves to efficiently capture the limiting resource, that is light. Thus the shade leaves are larger in size than the sun leaves. In heliophytes, more resources are allocated to roots so that a strong root system is developed for efficient water absorption. The xyophytes, on the other hand, have a poorly developed root system, as they don't preferentially allocate resources to the structure because of a low or little or no transpiration demand. Now let us talk about the root system or functional allocation to roots as far as resource allocation is concerned. This is one more morphological adaptation of plants to light. The roots of heliophytes are well developed because of more allocation of resources for their development. This is necessitated by a rapid transpiration which demands a rapid absorption of water. And this is the reason why they have a good root system than xyophytes, which grow under shade with good water and nutrient conditions and thus don't transpire that much of water. Dear students, now let us talk about the anatomical adaptations of plants to light, irradiance and other aspects of light. The first anatomical adaptation of plants to different light regimes is the Palisade tissue or Palisade mesophyll ratio. The Palisade tissue to spongy mesophyll ratio is high in leaves of plants adapted to high light irradiance, while as it is low for leaves of plants adapted to shady or low light intensity regimes. The Palisade tissue is multilayered in leaves of sun-loving plants or plants which are adapted to higher light intensities, while as the leaves of shade-loving plants have a single layer of Palisade tissue. The multilayered Palisade tissue is indicative of a higher rate of photosynthesis in heliophytes than xyophytes, which generally have a single layered Palisade tissue in their leaves. One more eccentric and interesting anatomical adaptation shown by plants to different light regimes is the occurrence of lens-shaped epidermal cells, especially in xyophytes. The lens-shaped epidermal cells, which focus light entrained within the mesophyll, are of wide occurrence in shade plants. These cells help in maximizing focal intensification into leaves by about 25 times that of incident light. Such focal intensification is not required in plants adapted to high light environments, as you are aware and you know it very well, because in high light environments the leaves are saturated with light, thus these cells are absent or rare in leaf epidermis of plants adapted to high light levels. One more adaptation is the red abaxial layer in xyophytes. The plants growing in extreme or deeply shaded conditions such as the forest floor develop anthocyanins on the lower side of their leaves. This red colored abaxial layer helps to reflect back the radiations which otherwise can pass through the lower surface, reflecting them back towards the mesophyll tissue in the leaf, so that mesophyll gets one more chance to trap these radiations. Chloroplast size is one more adaptation to different light levels. The size of chloroplast varies in sun and shade plants. The small sized chloroplasts are an adaptation to sunny conditions, while as large sized stomata is an adaptation in response to the shady environments. Dear students, thylakoid to grana ratio is also different in the leaves of plants growing in different light regimes. The chloroplasts in leaves of shade adapted plants have a higher thylakoid grana ratio than leaves of plants adapted to high light intensity, where this ratio is low. The larger number of thylakoids per granum is an adaptation to maximize light absorption in light limited environments. One more anatomical adaptation to light encountered in plant world is in vascular tissues. Plants adapted to high light intensity have a well developed xylem and phloem system or vascular system, while as plants adapted to low irradiance have a poor vascular system. Plants which are adapted to high light intensity show a very high rate of photosynthesis and transpiration. The high rate of transpiration requires a very good root system for water absorption and also a well developed xylem tissue for transporting this water to the leaves, while as in shady environments transpiration is very low, thus such plants have a poor conduction or vascular system. The phloem tissue is also well developed in plants adapted to higher light levels because of a higher rate of photosynthesis and food transport than in plants adapted to low light levels which have a low photosynthetic rate and food transport thereof. Now let us talk about some physiological adaptations of plants to different light regimes. The first physiological adaptation shown by plants to different light regimes is the chlorophyll content and chlorophyll ratio. The plants growing in low irradiance or low light intensity have a high content of chlorophyll in them as an adaptation to maximize absorption of whatever light is available. In heliophytes or sun leaves, the chlorophyll content is comparatively less than pseuophytes or plants growing in low light regimes, as these leaves receive a good flux of radiations. The chlorophyll A to chlorophyll B ratio is higher in heliophytes than in pseuophytes, while it is low, meaning chlorophyll B is in more quantity than chlorophyll A, which facilitates or maximizes light absorption. Rubisco, the carboxylating enzyme. The plants adapted to high light irradiance have a high content of Rubisco per unit of leaf mass than pseuophytes, which have a low content of Rubisco per unit mass. The high content of Rubisco in sun leaves is justified by the high rates of energy capture and subsequent higher needs of carboxylation in them, while as shade leaves show a low rate of carboxylation as a consequence of low energy capture. The photosynthetic rate is also adaptive. The plants adapted to high light intensity show a high rate of photosynthesis than pseuophytes, in which the photosynthetic rate is limited by light availability. The multi-layered Palisade tissue, a higher content of enzymes such as the carboxylating enzyme Rubisco, high stomatal density for an efficient gas exchange, are collective indications or indices which are reflective of a high photosynthetic rate in leaves of plants adapted to high light intensity environments than in pseuophytes, which are plants which have low Palisade to mesophyll tissue, low stomatal density and low Rubisco content, which is adaptive in low light environments for optimizing a low rate of photosynthesis. The photosynthetic rate is adaptive and optimized in different irradiance levels. If a shade adaptive plant is transferred to a full sun environment, its photosynthetic rate will diminish, besides the possibility of damage to its photosynthetic apparatus. The one more physiological adaptation is transpiration. The plants growing in high light intensity show a high rate of photosynthesis, which is associated with a high rate of gaseous exchange through the stomata. This high rate of gaseous diffusion in leaves of such plants is supported by a high stomatal density or frequency, which also act as windows for the escape of small water vapors, thus resulting in a high rate of transpiration. The high rate of transpiration in heliophytes necessitates a higher allocation of resources to structures which will absorb more of water, that is to root formation in such plants for better absorption of water, which is lost at a higher rate. In plants adapted to low light intensity, rate of transpiration is extremely low. One more physiological adaptation is the rate of respiration. The plants growing in low light intensity or shade show a low or reduced rate of respiration as compared to heliophytes, while the respiration rate is comparatively very high. The low respiratory rate in physiophytes is an adaptation to maximize the net photosynthetic gain from the low energy inputs received by these plants. This also helps in reducing the compensation point in physiophytes as compared to heliophytes. One more physiological adaptation shown by plants to light is the compensation point. Compensation point is the light intensity at which rate of photosynthesis is equal to the rate of respiration. Higher the rate of respiration, higher is the compensation point. Since physiophytes have low or reduced rate of respiration, they thus have a low light compensation point. If a sun-loving plant with high rate of respiration is shifted or transplanted to a shady environment, it will die because the low energy availability and capture will not fulfill the high respiratory demand of this plant. The low compensation point in physiophytes helps them to survive under very low light or low energy availability. One more adaptation shown in plants to different light regimes or different light environments is reproduction. The plants adapted to high light intensity show a higher rate of reproduction than plants adapted to shade or low light intensity. Since reproduction is an energy consuming process, the plants adapted to high light intensity capture lot of energy than the plants adapted to shady environments, which they use for flowering, seed and fruit formation. One more adaptation of plants shown to the light or light duration is photoperiodism. Photoperiodism is the flowering response of plants to duration of light. Some plants bloom under long day light conditions and are called as long day plants, while some other plants require short day length for blooming and are called as short day plants. A short day plant fails to bloom if transplanted to a place where day length is long. This adaptation to day length or light period for blooming greatly influences plant distribution over the globe. Seed germination can also be adaptive at times. When we talk about seed germination, the seeds of plants are able to sense the spectral quality and quantity of light. This adaptation helps them to measure the depth of burial beneath soil and thus their germination behavior or pattern. A deeply buried seed never germinates, while as seeds brought close to the soil surface by plowing germinate. Besides, the seeds of shade adapted plants also use this adaptation or to germinate only in low irradiance conditions, while as they don't germinate in conditions where they perceive a very high intensity of light. Dear students, with this we come to the end of today's lecture. Hope this might have added to your knowledge. Thank you.